Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. This week there isn't a chapter, so we're going to cover the SBS 105. Let's get into it. The first question I want to cover is dealing with Chopper, and I think this is the most controversial question. Basically, the question was asking, since it was so sad that the people of Wano were affected by these failed smile fruits, could Chopper heal them before he left Wano? So Oda addresses how deeply saddening it is where a kid who loses their parents just has to laugh through it, right? That interaction between Yasui and Toka was just so disheartening, where she just saw her father lose his life right in front of her own eyes. Like, that must be the most crushing thing you could ever see. And through all of that, you just hear her just maniacally laughing through that entire process. But Oda says that Chopper really just couldn't create this drug since he didn't have the ability to. And he also says that sometimes there are things in this world that you just can't control and you just can't change. So a lot of people were saying that Oda copped out here and that Chopper should have been able to solve this. And I was with this group of people as their main piece of evidence was that Chopper was the first one to manipulate devil fruit abilities using some type of drug, and that was with the Rumble Ball. So if Chopper early on in his days of being a doctor could manipulate devil fruits to such a high degree without much difficulty, imagine what Chopper in modern day could do, and it's crazy that he still couldn't solve it at that point. So I wasn't sure why Oda was completely closing this off. My best guess was that Oda doesn't want to give too much away just yet. And so once Chopper learns what he can from Vegapunk about devil fruits and about extracting the lineage factor from these devil fruits, maybe Chopper will become a way better doctor and will be able to come back to Wano and solve this later on. And I think that's kind of what Oda was setting up, and I believe that Oda has referenced this in the past as well, that we would potentially come back to Wano. And when we do come back to Wano, let's say the Straw Hats do come back to Wano, that might be when Wano actually opens its borders, right? So far, Momo has not opened the borders yet, and so when the Straw Hats return, maybe that's a good time to open them. At the end of the day, I think Chopper will be able to heal these people, but we'll just have to wait a while. The next thing I want to talk about is the question involving Sanji's eyebrows. The question is in that chapter 1031, Sanji's eyebrows were reversed, and in chapter 1044 they went back to normal. And so the person is like, why did they go back to normal? So Oda basically describes the differences between him and his siblings, like superhuman abilities and a strengthened exoskeleton due to their manipulated lineage factor. And due to the interference from Sanji's mom, he was born human. Now when we look at Sanji's siblings such as Yonji, his eyebrows are set up like a 6'6", and Sanji's are the exact opposite. However, when Sanji put on his raid suit, that activated his latent ability and his eyebrows flipped. So whenever Sanji's latent ability is activated, his eyebrows will flip, and then when it gets deactivated, they'll flip back to normal, is what Oda is implying here. Oda even trolls us at the end. He's just like, oh, it was a mystery before, but now it's not, you know? And it's like, dude, yeah, obviously it was a mystery because you had to clarify and tell us now, you know, you didn't tell us in the manga. I want to touch on two more stories that were interesting in the SBS, and one of these was about manga in the One Piece world. In chapter 145, we hear Kaido say Imonogatari, which means an illustrated story. And so they continue to ask, does manga exist in the One Piece world? And so Oda says that mangas don't necessarily exist in the One Piece world, but illustrated stories do, which operate in the same zone as manga. And the funny thing is apparently in the One Piece world, something like speech bubbles don't exist. So I'm guessing like the text would be under the illustration rather than being within the illustration. And Oda continues on and actually says some famous stories within the One Piece story, and something we've heard before, Sora the Warrior of the Sea was the story related to Germa 66, and apparently this comic was very popular in the North Blue where Law and X-Drake were from. Another story was Fire Dog, and I couldn't find really any references to this. And the next story was Pokemon, and Oda even says Pokemon is literally a direct reference to Pokemon, right? There's nothing different about this at all. It's literally a direct reference. And another direct reference was Marco-san, which was based on Chibi Maruko-san, which was an old Japanese manga. And this story depicts a simple everyday life of a young girl, Maruko. So honestly, there's no end to world building in One Piece. Oda just keeps adding more and more onto the depth of One Piece. I also wonder if Luffy has ever even read a book in One Piece, you know what I'm saying? Like, has Luffy ever looked at a book? I really doubt he's read even a single illustrated story, you know what I'm saying? And the last question I want to address is a question about the crew. And the question basically asks, do the later members, Robin, Frankie, Brooke, and Jinbei, know about the stories of the crew from the East Blue? And Oda responds with, Luffy and Zoro don't really talk about the past. They're really more focused on their future and their goals in the future. Whereas Usopp kind of just spews out anything and everything about any story that he has had in the past, and most of them are lies. So the crew really doesn't depend on Usopp for any real information. So Nami, Sanji, and Chopper are the only reliable sources of information. And this is actually pretty interesting, as the entire crew isn't really focused on the past. No one cares about their past before joining the crew. They care more about once they're in the crew, being in the present and enjoying the journey. You know what I'm saying? And One Piece is all about enjoying the journey. Like, we haven't even gotten any sight of the One Piece yet. We haven't even gotten close, and it's been over 20 years that One Piece has been around, and we have been reading One Piece for years. But it's all about the journey. Every single chapter matters, and that leaves me with my final quote: enjoy the process. But let me know what you guys thought of this SBS in the comments down below, and subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.